Hello there guys, how's it going and welcome to Toofty's Television Times. Today we're talking about which class spams the most, and to save you time I'm going to answer it right away. The answer is Sniper, of course. I'm just kidding ya. I've been wanting to do a video on this topic for blinking ages, and finally I've decided to get round to it, and I think it's going to be a good one. The reason I wanted to do this video is because in the past, as a demo main, you do occasionally tend to get the odd bit of abuse whenever you use the sticky bomb launcher.
Oh, Toofty, you're such a M1, M2 sticky spamming noob. You're so much
The usual. So I was thinking, what should I call this video? I could call it Thoughts on Spamming. So that would probably get like 100 views. How about Spamming is Skillful? Oh, about 1,000 views maybe. Which class spams the most? Hundreds of millions of views. I'm telling you, I've got the skills for naming videos. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about what exactly is spam. I think there are a few ways the terminology is used. Secondly, why do people get triggered so much about it? As usual, try to delve out of my depth into the psychology behind why people get so upset by spamming. And as the video title suggests, who spams the most? I just thought this would be a bit of fun really. Something to focus the video on and stop it being too dry and too serious. And finally, I'm going to talk about the sticky bomb launcher in particular, and some more general thoughts about what I do, the kind of loadouts I use, and if and when I like to use a bit of juicy spam. Okay, so what is spam? Easy, right? It's probably something along the lines of firing with little consideration. Okay, that makes sense, and it's exasperated when that firing is done with more forgiving weaponry or abilities. There you go, I made that definition up. It's beautiful, isn't it? It kind of makes sense, I don't know. But I think it's more than that. It's not that simple, I promise you, because if you have ever watched some competitive TF2, you hear the casters talking about spam all the time. Now, a pro TF2 player is not shooting without consideration. Every single one of their shots is carefully considered, to some degree at least. So I think to begin with, there's a very broad range of what spam actually means. It can be anything from area control, denying a choke, purposely firing at a group of players, but maybe not having an individual player in mind, or maybe even firing at an individual player, but because they're quite far in the distance, the likelihood of you hitting is low. It could be all these things. It could be a heavy looking for a spy. It could be a soldier or a demo man protecting a choke, like I said. It can be so many things, and obviously some things are more spammable than others, so anything with an explosive radius, much easier to spam than say hit scan. So it's a scale, but the more forgiving the weaponry, the more easier and the more often it is spammed. I'd also go as far as saying there is skillful spam and not skillful spam, if you like. The best way to describe what I mean is if you had a high level TF2 player and a noob and you put them together and they were both spamming a choke, one would be much more considered and be putting out much more damage, whereas the other one would be kind of more mindless, and that kind of applies to each weapon kind of differently. Another example is the Huntsman Sniper. So it's a very spammy weapon. That's kind of how you're meant to use it. You need to constantly spam chokes, sight lines at head height. Obviously you're trying to predict where the enemies are, but you're also pre-firing a lot as well. A completely new player might spam the Huntsman in a very different way to a very experienced sniper player, if you see what I mean. So there you go, that's the definition, easy peasy. Why do people hate spam so much? This is how I see it. If it feels like someone is putting less effort into the game and getting the same or more reward than you, this can feel unfair, cheap, and dishonourable, amongst other things, and that can basically upset a player, right? Especially when that person is being really effective, and especially when you, the triggered, is playing, for example, a class that is less forgiving, such as Sniper. And I totally understand that. I'm pretty chilled when I'm playing video games. I don't get too miffed, but occasionally the closest I get to super triggered because of spam is when probably I'm up against a pyro and say I've very carefully placed a couple of pipes, but then they kind of run at me and wave their flamey stick around and they end up taking me out. No offense to pyros, not all of them are like that, but that's probably the closest I get to, getting upset by spam. Okay, so that's my deep psychological analysis of why we get upset by spam. You could kind of call it getting salty, right? That's the simple version, but it's not just getting salty because someone's better than you, it's instead because they're using, say, cheaper tactics. Anyway, all that aside, I wanted to also answer, should we be getting triggered? This is an interesting one because I think the answer is not really, to be honest with you. As long as what the opponent is doing is not an exploit, and therefore it's an intended part of the game. Now this is a kind of a grey area, because you could argue that the sticky bomb launcher, for example, it's air quotes designed for traps, but I think it's come a long way from those humble beginnings. I think once upon a time perhaps the developers had traps in mind for it, but you know, it was probably like a week into the game and then people started to use it differently. I think it actually got a nerf very early on, if I remember correctly, because the game evolved and people used it differently, and so it was about just being the primary weapon for the demo man. Anyway, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here, getting a bit too excited. But what I wanted to say here is about, if you're playing a competitive game and you really want to win, then anything is game, if you know what I mean. It reminds me a little bit of the term tryhard. It's another term that doesn't really make much sense because it's kind of the point of the game. Obviously, if you're playing casual, it doesn't matter, but at the same time, you're still trying to win, and you can sort of try as hard as you want. And I think tryhard is another term that's used, I guess, when people are getting a bit salty. Let's be honest. But yeah, let's leave that and move on to the next part of the video, which is what we've all been waiting for. Who spams the most? This should be quite simple, I think, because we all know snipers spam the most. Like I said, I just wanted to do this for a little bit of fun, put these in order, of which I think are the most spammable classes, if you like. To be fair, I would be... the amount of grief I get if I didn't do this would be off the chart, so I'm going to put Demo Man as number 1. He is super spammy. His sticky bombs and his pipes both are so easy because of their splash damage and their numerousness. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. You can throw those grenades out there, and if you're not aiming too well, if you're not that skilled, you're probably still going to do some work. But let's be honest, it's a close one. It's almost a tie with Pyro, surely. He's a very spammable class in a different kind of way, right? He's very easy to spam, but just at a very short range. And that's why he got, you know, the classic WM1 name that has followed him about for so long. Next up, what do you reckon? Heavy or Soldier? I'm going to go with Soldier because, again, the splash damage. And then next up, Heavy, who has quite a large cone of fire and can kind of spam the front lines and probably do a lot of work. And then we start to get to the classes that really don't spam that much. And of course, all this depends on what loadout you have. I was just thinking then of the medic with the needle gun. Pretty spammy weapon, right? But not many people use that these days. But I'll pop him down next anyway, because, you know, he does spam a lot of those juicy crossbow arrows into the battle. Maybe Engineer next, as he spams his shotgun, Scout, and finally Sniper and Spy. You know, it doesn't matter too much. I was more interested in the other end of the chart. But yeah, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Love to spark a bit of a debate as well. Get a little bit of the rage going on. We all love a bit of a rage. You know, I may have missed something, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, to finish this episode off, I wanted to talk a little bit about the sticky bomb launcher. A little bit controversial. I love this weapon, and this is the weapon I wanted to say grew up on. I didn't grow up on it, but I played for a long time with this weapon, and I think I actually got pretty skillful at it. But one of the issues with the sticky bomb launcher is it's very difficult to distinguish between someone who is experienced with it and someone who is not. Unlike a weapon such as the sniper, where if someone's terrible at sniper, you know it, they're not doing any damage, they're doing nothing. If someone's terrible at the sticky bomb launcher, they're still putting out damage and they're probably still getting kills, and that's exactly what is frustrating. I want to do some more tips on the sticky bomb launcher because it's such a ridiculously versatile weapon. There are so many awesome nuances with it. Having little traps at your feet to take out a pursuing scout, trapping up health packs, blocking off escape routes. There's endless stuff, and I did kind of cover this in one of my early videos, but like I said, I'd probably love to do a bit more of this in the future. But yeah, what I wanted to say about the sticky bomb launcher is if you genuinely want to win a game, in the current state, stickies are an essential part of the Demo Man's kit and basically provide super reliable damage output. I think this is, you know, common knowledge. I'm just sort of reiterating here. But there's a couple of additional things I wanted to mention here that I think are a tad more on the controversial side of life. And the first one is, I think the sticky bomb launcher is quite comparable to the rocket launcher. Each shot you take, you have to take into consideration the arm time and predict where the enemy is going. And I'd even go as far as saying that in some respects, detting a sticky bomb directly at an enemy's feet is more difficult than shooting a rocket directly at an enemy's feet, if you see what I mean. The difference being that the sticky bomb launcher has, you know, more shots and a slightly faster rate of fire, so it's kind of, again, higher on that forgiving scale we talked about earlier. I have to say, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this video. I don't have some massive agenda. It's more just a discussion point and something that I'd really be interested to get your thoughts on. I think the most controversial thing I'll say today is just to add one more thing to the mix. And that is, I think that the sticky bomb launcher has as high a skill ceiling, almost, maybe, I'm not sure, I might regret saying this, as the grenade launcher. But it's not really like for like, is it? It's a difficult one to compare because direct hits is a very similar thing you're doing, but it's very difficult to do. Whereas the sticky bomb launcher, like I said, is very versatile. There is a lot of things you can do with it and learn to do with it, but it's less about, pinpoint accuracy. It's more about thinking and being tactical. So yeah, it'd be good to get your thoughts on that, especially from any other demo players. But as you may have noticed, I don't really use the sticky bomb launcher anymore, and that's partly because of the feedback I got from you guys in videos and on stream. I'm a filthy casual, as we all know, so I get loads of enjoyment from this game just from messing about, using weapons that are very satisfying, such as the grenade launcher, and I also get satisfaction from winning. But winning isn't as important to me as, say, those playing competitively or what have you. So as I put more videos out and people kind of gave me feedback about really enjoying seeing those videos where I was using the grenade launcher and people not enjoying it so much when I was using the sticky bomb launcher, I basically gradually moved towards using the grenade launcher and sticky jumper. And because from my perspective, it's all good fun. Sure, it's not quite as effective. I might win slightly less games, but it's all good fun. And to be honest, by being encouraged to do that, I actually obviously improved a lot more with my grenade launcher. And I think in the long run, it made my footage much more entertaining. But going back to the topic at hand, of course, pills are pretty spammable too. But obviously, as we've discussed, the core of the matter is it's a less forgiving weapon. So when you miss a grenade, it goes flying off and you often do no damage. So yeah, like I said, I love using both weapons, but I just tend to use a grenade launcher or iron bomber more often just simply because it's more entertaining. But I thought this would be a really interesting topic for us to have a little chat about because it's just one of those things you see come up time and time again in the comments section and TF2, someone having a little rage, and I just wanted to take a step back and kind of analyse, dissect what exactly the term means, why people get upset by it, and maybe kind of defend the sticky bomb launcher a little bit too, just a squidgin. You can't blame me, I'm a demo main. I genuinely have cuddly little sticky bombs at home, but I promise I do not take them to bed with me. It's fine. There's nothing weird going on here. Anyway, let's end this video here, but let me know your thoughts on this topic. Does it trigger your face off when other people use spammy weapons? And of course, let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've said in this video. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.